they say it's hard to move. I like to see that shot, yeah.
No way.
Over near the cop, up to the right, Kevin.
People gonna cross, please. On the other side there, bro. On the grass. Right in front of the sign.
Ja, jeg stod ellers ved at vurdere det. Angetragen.
Christian fell over.
Keep what?
You want people to see this?
I saw you and Daddy racing.
Sir, you got to move out of the road.
Action Committee. It's been great so far. I just want to say a few words to you, and then I will turn over the microphone to Representative Woodward, Dan O'Neill, who is the president of the Mass Corrections Officers Union, and Jack Flanagan, their legislative rep. We're here today because Governor Dukakis, DOC Commissioner Vos, and Paul Levy, the MWRA Executive Director, just don't get it. Behind us, we have MCI Cedar Junction, which is literally bursting apart at the seams. And the Department of Corrections wants to pack inmates like sardines into 5x8 cells. This plan is absolutely insane because the Department of Correction owns property right next to it, which could be used for prison expansion. Now, common sense would dictate that this land be used for modular units or permanent facilities. However, in the Commonwealth, anything but common sense prevails these days. Massachusetts is wrestling with two major issues: prison overcrowding and the Boston Harbor cleanup. While prisons are overcrowded, while murders are committed daily in Boston, while the corrections officers work at great risk to their safety in volatile situations, the governor prefers to endorse Paul Levy's plan to site a landfill on DOC property next to Cedar Junction. In other words, cleaning up the harbor and protecting fish is more important than protecting public safety, the inmates, and the corrections officers. If tensions within the prisons are running high now, then tempers will flare if the landfill is sited next door, because prisons and sludge aren't good neighbors. In Lawton, Virginia, methane gas from a landfill near a prison exploded and killed 2 inmates. The explosion forced a 6-month evacuation of the building. If that happens here, where are these inmates going to be evacuated to? Mr. Vos does not have an answer. For the past 2 years, the Walpole and Norfolk citizen committees have been trying to meet with the inmates and to make the MWRA understand that there will be real problems if this landfill is sited next door. But Paul Levy doesn't listen. In the fall of '88, the chairman of the Walpole Citizen Group met with the Norfolk Lifers Group. One of the inmates drafted up a petition outlining his concerns and sent it to environmental officials. A few weeks later, he was transferred on a technicality to an isolation unit in Norfolk and then to Walpole. Last spring and summer, the Norfolk CAC requested permission to do a presentation to the inmates. George Vos. George. George Vos's response. George Vos's response last July was, "It is my belief that such a meeting would only serve to heighten the tensions and emotions in an already overcrowded prison system." So what does he think that a landfill open 7 days a week and emits terrible odors is going to do? Last summer, I received an anonymous phone call. The caller asked me to contact Massachusetts Correctional Legal Services for help. An attorney from the legal services offered an opinion that Vos's denial was unconstitutional under Massachusetts and federal law. Now we have contacted the Massachusetts Civil Liberties Union. We really have a very sad state of affairs in the Commonwealth because the officials who are making the decisions that affect the people do not listen to what the people are saying. Instead, they hope to continue with this ludicrous plan to site a landfill on prison property. The governor is expected to introduce legislation to transfer the property from the Department of Corrections to the MWRA. We can't allow this to happen because the #1 priority in the Commonwealth has to be safety for the public, for the inmates, and for the corrections officers. If we allow this misguided plan to continue, the MWRA will not only jeopardize public safety, but water supplies for the towns of Walpole and Norfolk. So call the governor, call Commissioner Vos, call Paul Levy and tell them that enough is enough, and that prisons belong on prison property, not landfills. Thank you. Who would like to speak to you too. Frank?
All right, Frank.
I know. You're holding it, right? Well, although we celebrate today as St. Patrick's Day, March 17, 1776, we ran the British out of Boston. And today, this evacuation day in 1990, we want to run the MWRA out of this district. What kind of madness is it that the MWRA wants to take this site just 250 yards from here when their prisons are busting at the seams, and we have offered them over a year ago the opportunity to build a facility right here on this site? What madness is that?
Sick madness! Sick madness! Political!
One day, a few of you here and myself went in to see John DeVillis, the Secretary of Environmental Affairs. It was on a Friday. And that Friday and over the weekend, he was going to make a decision based on all sorts of information that he had, whether or not it would be allowed for a landfill here in Walpole.
Loving spies!
And over that weekend, he said yes. He said yes. Yet there isn't one private developer in this Commonwealth that would ever get permission to put anything on a site like that over an aquifer. And he does this all protecting the environment. That's his watchword, protect the environment. You have seen Secretary DeVillis in the newspaper recently objecting to the fact that places are being built over aquifers and around aquifers. And they're private developers. But when we take them out here, the word is always the same. We think the MWRA can do it. Do you think so? No! Do you think that Secretary DeVillis gives one tinker's damn about this site? No! Do you think Paul Levy gives one tinker's damn about this site? No! And the governor? Do you think the governor cares?
No! He's a liar! He's a liar!
Let me read this. You've been reading in the paper. You've been reading in the paper about the Attorney General. The Attorney General has spent almost $500,000 in trying to combat Seabrook, which is in New Hampshire. $500,000. Do you think Jim Shannon cares one tinker's damn?
No way! No way!
to Senator Kennedy, Senator Kerry, Congressman Markey, Congressman Marvulis, Governor Dukakis, and every one of them have had their head handed to them with regard to the NRC. You would think that they would have empathy for the town of Walpole, this brave community that has taken these 2,500 prisoners for many, many years. Just this past week, and I heard a couple people say it today and ask me today, just this past week, I filed legislation to build a prison on that property, and it'll be admitted on Monday. And I want to tell you the great job that all of you have been doing in calling and talking and going in to see my colleagues, because you have made a great impression on them. I want to beat Paul Levy to the punch. I want to beat him to the punch because if that legislation is filed, I want all of you to be proud enough to know that you here in Walpole, you here in Norfolk, and all along the way down the Charles River, through Wellesley, through Medfield, where this will eventually travel, have made a difference. And we're going to keep making a difference until they find out for themselves, finally, that this is folly, absolute folly, to build anything here, except perhaps another prison. Because prisoners... So I'm proud of all of you, and just keep up the fight. And as we go forward here, I know this is going to make a great impression. The Guards Union has been great. They've been great.
All right.
And we want to protect them, and we want to protect all the people that work there. We want to protect the volunteers who go in there and administer to the prisoners. Because if any blood, and I hope it never is, if any blood is ever spilt in any of these prisons, it's going to be on the hands of Michael Dukakis and Paul Levy.
Can I have your attention again, please? Dan O'Neill, the president of the Mass Correctioners Office of Union.
Well, I'm very proud to be here. My organization, myself, we support you all 100% in the plight you are facing today.
Speak up, Danny.
We will continue to fight with you. We are not going to let this sludge dump into this area. We do need the prisons, and no one seems to care. We're supposed to hit a button. They just have to yell over the
Use the other mic.
Okay.
In the horns.
It's about time the candidates that are running for offices now start coming up with solutions instead of talking about what the problem is. We all know what the problems are. What are the solutions to those problems?
No sludge! 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 No sludge!
There's one thing I do want you all to know, and I said this the other night in Walpole. We were in the State House. We happened to bump into Paul Levy, and we asked him about the liners. And he said they won't leak for 30 years. And I said, that's not true. Within 7 or 8 years, they have all leaked national-wide. And he said, by that time, I'll be gone anyway. With that, he just smiled and walked away and ducked any more questions we could possibly ask him.
Repeat that again, Repeat that again for the Globe, will you?
Where's the television cameras to pick it up?
Repeat it for the Boston Globe, that they all leak. They all leak.
They all leak. They do leak.
Why are the television television station's leaving now when you're saying these things.
Let's go to Dukakis's house.
Yeah.
Let's go to Perry Street.
Yeah.
Well, we will continue to follow what you people are doing. We will support you. I'm proud that all of you come out like this. You ought to be proud of yourselves. You're fighting for a worthy cause. You're fighting for your communities. You're fighting for your livelihoods. And that impresses me. So God love all of you. And see you in the front.
Corrections Officers Union. Jack?
Our 3,000 officers that we represent as a union, the Mass Correction Officers Federated Union, is solidly behind you people. People ask why the Correction Officers Union is taking a stance to involve themselves in this fight. Well, we have a vested interest. If those aquifers are compromised, what are they going to do at Walpole and Norfolk when they have to shut them down? The prison system in Massachusetts to date has collapsed. Well, we have a governor that sits in the State House in a coma. Well, if he's not willing to come out of that coma, I suggest they pull the plug on this individual. In my business in the State House as the legislative representative, this union never lets an opportunity go by in our conversations with both the representatives and the senators to interject our concerns for the citizens of this local community and the officers that we represent. So I suggest to you people that if you persevere and you follow the governor and you can wake him out of his coma, that perhaps we will persevere and win. Thank you very much.
Next week and the week after, we will be letting everybody know, but there'll be another rally at the Norfolk prison. We're not going to stop here. We're going to keep marching all the way. And we're going to tell Paul Levy, no way in Walpole and Norfolk. What I want you to do now, this is the end of this rally here today. What I want you to do is brake cleanly and drive, and please leave carefully. Please watch out for the children. That's your main concern. That's why we're here today. So please watch your children here today. And we want to thank you all for coming. And remember to keep the support up. We need it. No sludge! No sludge! No sludge! No sludge!
Yeah, I think it was a wonderful program. It looks like
Please hold the children. Please hold the children. Hold on to the children, please. Please hold on to your children.
way ahead. We have to walk. Yeah, Susan said she saw you at the meeting last. So you also.
I live on this upriver.
3 days after the meeting, I'll find out.
Junction back here, over by the back gate.
Yeah,